Alrighty, everyone, what's going on? Today we're going to be taking a look at the Linux gaming experience. So I'm going to make it very simple. I'm basically just going to tell you what my Linux distribution is, what my computer hardware is. I'm going to tell you what my Linux kernel version is. I'm going to tell you what my Mesa version is because I have an AMD graphics card. And then I'm going to show you some of the gaming applications that we can use in Linux, as well as some gaming utilities, such as frame rate limiting software and overlay software, so that we can view frame rate, frame times, CPU utilization, RAM, GPU, VRAM utilization, all that good stuff. And then maybe we'll test a couple games, kind of go over Proton versions, stuff like that. Just kind of everything that you need out of the box to have the premier gaming experience in Linux. And of course, the most important decision that you will probably make is which Linux distribution that you're using, because that can define how easy this experience is from the get-go. I'm personally using Nobara 36. It is a Fedora-based Linux distribution made by the epic dude behind Proton Glorious Eggroll. It is running Linux kernel 6.0.14, I believe. We can verify this by typing in uname space -r. So 6.0.14.201 fsync variant. And we can also do glx info grep Mesa. You can see that we are running Mesa driver 22.3.0, which is a more up-to-date version, but Mesa Git is the most bleeding edge version. I've had issues with Mesa Git, so I do prefer to have the lower revision version, but not an older version, if that makes sense. So we've got a pretty good version here. Of course, if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, Nobara makes it incredibly simple to install your driver. You can just type in welcome here, and this is going to pop up the first time you boot into the operating system anyway. And you can see first steps. You can update your system. It's going to automatically install the media codecs and libraries, which is very important. And then it will allow you to install your NVIDIA drivers from this option right here. I don't have to do that. My driver comes pre-installed out of the box because it's open source, totally open source. Has been for a very long time, so it's a little bit easier for you to get up and running with AMD. And I think you have less issues overall with AMD, but I have gamed in Linux quite a few times with an NVIDIA card, so it's definitely doable. But yeah, these are the first tools that you will be utilizing in Nobara. Ubuntu, I believe, auto installs the NVIDIA driver if it detects that your system is running it from the install. Linux Mint has a driver manager to allow you to install the NVIDIA driver, and Manjaro Linux and Garuda both, I believe, let you boot with proprietary drivers so that you can use your NVIDIA cards. So a lot of the modern Linux distributions, Pop! OS included, has an NVIDIA ISO. They just kind of work with NVIDIA cards out of the box, so it's not as complex as it used to be, but AMD still just kind of works that little much better. So that being said, once you boot into your Linux distribution, you're going to update your system, of course. You want to make sure you have all of your packages up to date. And then you want to make sure that your graphics software is performing properly. If you have an AMD card, like I said, it should be working out of the box. NVIDIA, click that install proprietary NVIDIA drivers option. Or if you're on Manjaro Garuda, make sure you boot with proprietary drivers. Ubuntu should automatically install it. Pop! OS's NVIDIA ISO should automatically install it. And of course, Linux Mint, go to the driver manager. It should pop up a little error on your screen saying that your software rendering the desktop. Well, you want to click that and go to your driver manager and be sure to install your NVIDIA driver there. And once you've done that, really the most important thing to do is to install some software to launch your games. So I don't have Heroic Games Launcher installed right now, but it is an open source alternative to the Epic Games Store and GOG Galaxy Launcher. It's an excellent piece of software. Matter of fact, I could probably go ahead and download this because I'm gonna need it. I do love the Heroic Game Launcher. You can also use this in Windows, so that's pretty cool. We're gonna let that download in the background, and we'll get back to that. Of course, we're gonna show the main course here, which would be Steam. As you can see, Steam is like the premier gaming application in Linux. Valve has done so much work with Proton, which is a compatibility layer that allows you to run your Windows games in Linux, by the way. They've done a ton of work with Proton to make gaming in Linux seamless. And once you install Steam in Linux, which Nobara has it installed out of the box, by the way, it really is as simple as clicking on the Steam word up here, the word icon, going to settings, going down to Steam Play, and enabling Steam Play for all other titles, and selecting Proton 7.05. That's the version I recommend selecting. It's the latest stable version. What you can do is manually click the properties of any individual game in your library, click compatibility, and force any specific Steam Play compatibility tool that you want that way. So if 7.05 doesn't cut it, you go to ProtonDB, you find a report that says you should use experimental or an older version. You can change it through here for each game individually. Now, Speaking of Proton, it's important that I go ahead and get past this one thing. If you go to your software manager and you look up Proton Up Qt, you can also download this from its official website. It's on like a GitHub page. It's an app image. You can download it as in a flat pack, as you can see, and it's here for Nobara as a Nobara package. You want to look this up and install this also. This is going to allow you to easily install Proton Glorious Eggroll. Like I said, you can get the app image online. It's not hard to find. But I would recommend looking in your software repositories or your installation software, like install or the software application. That's just what it's called. And you install that, and when you open it, basically there's like two things you have to click, and you're on your way to installing Glorious Eggroll. Because Glorious Eggroll is important to use. Okay, Proton 7.05 and Experimental can get you through most games, but I have a couple games in my library that require Glorious Eggroll. More specifically, High on Life has a lot of issues without it. And Sonic Frontiers has a lot of issues without it. So, Glorious Eggroll it is. I used to play all the Resident Evil games with it. It's not necessary anymore because Valve implemented the proper fixes into the standard Proton versions. But Glorious Eggroll is always nice to have around. And of course, there may be other versions you want to install, like a Boxtron, Luxtrapeta, Proton TKG, and Roberta Steam Thinker Launch, which is pretty cool. I don't ever use any of that, of course. I only install Glorious Eggroll, but you know, you might need to use some of them, so keep that in mind. Proton Up Qt is for more than just installing Glorious Eggroll. But what you want to do is click Add Version and click Install. It's going to auto-select Glorious Eggroll's latest release. Once you do that, it's going to give you a little progress bar from 0 to 100%. And when it finishes, it'll say GE Proton 7, whatever revision you're on, and it'll say Unused. What you need to do after you have installed Glorious Eggroll is restart your Steam. If you didn't have Steam on in the first place, launch it. And you should now have the ability to right-click on a game and select for it to be forced using a specific version of Proton, that being Glorious Eggroll. That sentence probably sounded really terrible and didn't make a lot of sense, but let me re-break it down to you in a way that's more digestible. Basically, once that finishes, you can force it any game in Steam to use Glorious Eggroll. There you go. You can even set it universally, like I showed you in the actual Steam options up there, if you wanted to, but we're not going to do that. So we've got the Proton stuff out of the way. I guess the next thing we could talk about is actually like playing games. I don't know. It's pretty simple. You just click a game and you launch it. I don't have Steam Play at Proton enabled globally, so I actually, when I install my games individually, force a version of Proton. I don't really have that big of a library installed, but as you can see here, I have some incredibly popular games. Alien Isolation was a huge horror game. Astroneer is a great little indie game. We've got Deathloop, which it was huge. Disco Elysium was huge. Both of them work very well. Deathloop does have some issues when you alt-tab, but if you don't alt-tab, it works flawlessly. Elden Ring, the biggest game of the past 5 years, 10 years maybe, works flawlessly. God of War, amazing, works flawlessly. High on Life works amazingly. Little Nightmares 2, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Spider-Man Remastered, No Man's Sky, Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake, 7 and 8 also work. All of the Resident Evil games work, basically. Sonic Frontiers just came out, a really good Sonic game. Worthy successor to Sonic Adventure 2 and some of the other ones, like Sonic Generations. And then we got Barotrauma, Warhammer 40k Darktide. Warhammer 40k Darktide just came out, and it works good in Linux. That game is loaded down with its own issues, not related to Linux, so I wouldn't recommend playing it personally, but it does work at least. And you have Apex Legends, a huge one on this list, and it works amazingly. I run it at like well over 100 FPS. It's super smooth. I didn't have to do anything but click on the game, force it to use Proton Experimental, and install it. And I was off to the races. Ready or Not, another great game. Love this game. Works amazingly in Linux. 40 of my 50 hours are in Linux. So, of course, Valheim also works good. Some of these games have native Linux ports, like Alien Isolation and Valheim. They have native Linux ports, but I forced them all to use Proton 7.05. Most of the games in my library do. And no matter what launcher you're using, or I guess you could call this a launcher through a prefix, but you could also install, like, say, Battle.net, the Epic Games launcher, Origin, or the new EA app through Steam by adding a non-Steam game and forcing it to use Proton, whichever version you want. And Steam will actually create a wine prefix for that application, and you can launch those launchers through Steam, which is a launcher, funnily enough. So, that's interesting. That's something I'd love to show you in another video also. The only other launchers that I have installed are Lutris and the Heroic Game Launcher. I'll show you the Heroic Game Launcher first because this one is the most like Steam in terms of simplicity and usability. Basically, the Heroic Game Launcher is an open source version of the Epic Game Launcher, basically, and GOG compiled into one application. It's terrific. I'm not going to log in right now because it's not very important, but basically, once you install a game through this, you can force it to use Proton 7.05, Glorious Segway, whichever versions that it detects are installed on your system, you can access and manage through the Heroic Game Launcher for your individual games. Just like in Steam, it's just for a totally different launcher. So I think Heroic Game Launcher is a must-have if you have games on GOG and at the Epic Game Store. 110%. Excellent application. I've never had any issues with the Heroic Game Launcher. I love it. I think it's great. And then of course we have Lutris. I'll go ahead and launch this. I don't really use Lutris that much. It came pre-installed in Nobara 36, so I've been, I've like pinned it to my taskbar, but I've not actually used it yet. As you can see, it's checking for runtime updates. It's the first time I've launched it. And to be totally honest, Lutris is a great application. I just don't have any personal use for it, but what you can do is search games on Lutris's website, certain games that maybe you can't find on Steam or other launchers, and there are community-made installers that you can use to kind of work your way through installing some of these games through all sorts of launchers. You can even find the launchers on here. So we'll look for battle.net. We're probably going to be a loading screen for a second because it is a little slow. Let's see. Battle. Oh, this is so fun. It's here somewhere. I'll just type in net too. Maybe I should have just done that. Yeah. So you can actually install battle.net. As you can see here, community-made installer. It uses the standard version of Wine. This one specifically, I'm surprised there's not more. But this will just kind of automate the process of installing battle.net without you having to manually configure it yourself. That's what Lutris is. Slightly more complicated than just using Steam or the Heroic Game Launcher, but it is necessary for certain things. Like, I've never got this to work, but there are community installers for Resident Evil 2 and 3, the original PC releases, and the mod that fixes them for modern PCs. I haven't personally gotten it to work, but it is a thing, so keep that in mind. But yeah, we'll click cancel. Nothing to do here. This will create a wine prefix in your home username folder. In a game, I think it literally creates a folder called games, and then it'll put all of your selected applications and wine prefixes in that folder. So, Lutris is a great application. I don't personally have a need for it, but keep that in mind. It is there. Then we've got Grape Juice. If you are a Roblox person, which I'm not very much a Roblox person, but I do enjoy playing it sometimes, then what we can do is actually install Grape Juice in Nobara through the package manager. So we can click on software here, and we can just type in Grape Juice. As you can see, it's there. I actually installed this by typing in Roblox the first time, so it shows up. You install that, and basically you can just launch whichever game you want from Roblox's official application. I'll go ahead and come over here and do it. Okay, you know what I watch is nobody's business, okay? Okay, Roblox, bam. Let's just click it up. We'll launch into a game to showcase that it works. All right. Swinging Spider-Man. Why not? This is terrible. I don't know if you guys have ever played this. This game is like actually difficult and maddening. So we're gonna click play. Roblox Studio does have some additional setup options that you'll have to do the first time you launch a game and when you launch Grape Juice, so just keep that in mind. But look at it. Perfect. And it works beautifully. I've not had any issues with this except for in the FNAF multiplayer game I played with my friend the other day. It was lagging, so I had to turn the graphics down. But it works, and it works very well. I really can't complain. Oh yeah, okay, here we go. Yeah, so this is a Spider-Man roleplay simulator, guys. Through Grape Juice in Linux, and it works amazingly. So yeah, Roblox tickles your fancy. Here you go. You can install it super easily in Nobara. If you're in a different Linux distribution, you don't find it in your software repositories or like in your software manager through the graphical user interface version of the software repository or the the manager. I don't know why I keep saying repositories. Repositories is where the packages are stored, but the actual software manager is a graphical user interface application. You can also install a lot of programs to the terminal. We're not going to go through that in this video because it's not really necessary anymore for most things. But if you don't find Grape Juice in there, then you can actually just look it up on Google, find the official website, and it has a very comprehensive guide for how to install it. It's not as streamlined, it's slightly more complicated, but I think the average Joe could do it with very little effort. Also, some good videos on YouTube, so just keep that in mind. Some of these buildings are not popping in right. I think it's because I have the graphics automatically turned down. Let's see. Let's turn it up. Graphics quality max. Oh, we're lagging now. Oh, holy, good lordy, Lou, that looks so much better. Yeah, so this is Roblox. It works flawlessly. I don't think I've ever had a game not work. So yeah, we've covered Steam, we've covered our Epic Games and GOG launcher needs, as well as Lutris, which allows us to install games from all sorts of launchers. I guess the next thing we could take a look at is emulation, which is excellent in Linux. So I actually have Dolphin installed, which is a Wii and GameCube emulator. I have Yuzu, which is a Switch emulator, and then I have RPCS3, which is a PlayStation 3 emulator. All three of these applications work flawlessly. All of my backups work flawlessly. I can open up Dolphin and hey, it's saying that it's not finding in my WADs. I actually have my stuff saved to my hard drive. Oh, I think it's because it doesn't mount automatically with my system. So I can actually just do that manually. My bad. I really need to just set it to do that. Bam. Okay. So we relaunch Dolphin now. I think it'll just show our games. Yeah, there we go. So all my backups work flawlessly. I don't know. Let's Ultimate Spider-Man. I don't know. Terrific game, by the way. Dolphin is the only way to play this game, as far as I'm aware, in Linux. There's not any guide that I've found or easy way to install the PC version. So you can just emulate it at 4K 60 FPS on Dolphin. It's absolutely amazing. Just an amazing experience. Oh, by the way, Nobara has an amazing volume control panel here where you can just automatically, or not automatically, well, out of the box, just manually change all these volume sliders. It is so nice. I'm not gonna play this for very long. I'm gonna showcase the emulation working, and I'll launch up Mario Odyssey also, because that's a very intensive Switch game, one that works very well. Go ahead and turn my PlayStation 4 controller on. Go ahead and connect it. We'll go ahead and configure our controller. Bam, 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 bam. Save, close, close. I think we're good.
Of course.
Oh, no, we're not. It didn't work. Perfect. So, configuring your emulators, of course, this is something that most people could probably figure out very easily. Simply by, oh, I don't know. Looking at the controller configuration and stuff. It's not that complicated. I'm gonna be totally honest, there's more documentation on this than there is on just about anything else you're gonna find here probably, so these emulators have been around for a long time, and there's not too many differences between the Linux and Windows versions, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. We'll go ahead and calibrate this, and then we'll play the game for just a second. Calibrate. Probably could have done this automatically, but I didn't. So here we are.
And I was going to take it back.
LR, bam. I'll name this profile Ass. Save. So here we are. Ultimate Spider-Man at 4K 60 frames per second. We can't even play this in Linux natively. So you get a copy of the GameCube version, get you a drive to rip it, and you are off to the races. This is an excellent emulation experience. Linux does an amazing job with Dolphin. Does an amazing job with Yuzu also, as I'll show you here in a minute. I'm getting my butt kicked here.
I need to dodge faster than that.
Come on, Venom. Anyway, that's all I'm going to show. It works flawlessly. Every game I've run in this does. And RPCS3, I guess I can go ahead and show that too. I don't know if you guys saw the derpy bacon wrap there, but it's pretty good. Go ahead and launch this. Demon's Souls works amazingly. I'll launch into TASM 1 because it's already set up. I haven't first time launched Demon's Souls on this distribution yet. But TASM 1 is a super intensive game to emulate, and RPCS3 handles it like a champ in Linux. On my specific hardware. Oop. There's the fun part. Skipping through the introductory cutscenes. See? This is another game that's not easy to play in Linux, because it does have a PC port. It's pretty terrible, and in my experience, even in Windows, it's very bad on AMD graphics cards. But we can just emulate it. Yeah, it's a PlayStation 3 game. It has PlayStation 3 graphics. It doesn't look as good as the PC version, but we can upscale it to 4K, which I have. Turn on anisotropic filtering, which I have. And on top of that, still get the console experience frame rate of 30. So it is far from bad. I think we may have broke it by putting it in full screen mode. Okay, yeah, so you see we have a seg fault reading location here. This just happens sometimes in this emulator. I don't really know how to fix it. It's just a bug of RPCS3. As you can see, yeah. So we can try to relaunch the game. I think the entire emulator is going to crash. This happens. It just does. There are some fixes to kind of try and skate around these issues. But RPCS3 is nowhere near as optimized as Yuzu or as Dolphin, if that makes sense. So I think that I broke it by full screening it. We're going to launch one more time to prove, because I just want you guys to see every emulator in action. But yeah, I think I messed it up. I didn't mean to, though. We'll go ahead and skip past this again, and then I will showcase Yuzu. I've got all of my Switch backups kind of scattered out through my drive. Actually, you know what? I don't know if I want to emulate the Switch stuff on stream, because, doesn't Nintendo, like, really crack down on that type of stuff? You guys may just have to take my word for it. Or I don't know, maybe I can, like, boot into the game and show 3 seconds of it. I don't want to deal with that, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's just how it is. Oh yeah, so, the game seems to be working. There we go, look at this. We're not even in the open world section yet. The game does run slightly worse, but after shader comp is done, it runs at a pretty rock solid 30 FPS, and it's a great experience. So yeah, I have nothing but positive things to say about RPCS 3. It is a terrific experience. Go ahead and exit out of this. You know what? I'll take one for the team. Let's get into Yuzu. I'll test one game. Maybe I can test Super Mario 3D World, because it's already here. We'll just do that. Don't think I have my controller configured. Maybe I should do this first. Controls. Pro controller. DualShock. Fly. Okay. So Super Mario 3D World is amazing also. I absolutely adore this game. Me and my kids love it. We played a ton of it on my actual Nintendo Switch. Which I got my backups off of, by the way, because it's modified. And that's you can do that. You have to have a modded Switch in order to get backups from your game cartridges or any of your purchased games. It's kind of complicated and annoying, but you can do it. Of course, I do not condone piracy of any sort on this channel. The only instance I would ever say I think it's plausible to download something off the internet like that is if it's an abandonware game like The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, or have been in licensing limbo for many years. So the only way to get them is to download them off of, say, Pirate Bay or something like that. But Nintendo games, you're just going to have to suck it up, get a modded Switch, and deal with it. But yeah, I mean, look at it. It runs great. Looks beautiful. Playing at 1080p with the Vulkan renderer. I have AMD FX enabled for the anti-aliasing. So the game looks slightly better than I think it would on Switch, and it runs at a rock solid 60 frames per second. Really can't ask for more than that. Mario Odyssey also works beautifully. I'll do a video someday showcasing CMU. It also works very well in Linux. I don't think I've used an emulator ever that hasn't worked properly, so yeah, that's Super Mario 3D World. So to recap, so far we've gone over Steam, Gorilla Game Launcher, which is an open source version of the Epic and GOG game launchers. We've shown Lutris, which allows you to install games from all sorts of launchers and just applications in general that might be on there from, whatever has a community-made installer. And we've covered emulation. The only other thing that I can really think of to cover in gaming is G-Overlay, and more specifically, Mango HUD, which comes pre-installed in Nobar 36 with G-Overlay. I don't have to do any extra tinkering here. That is something that you will have to do in other distributions, like Ubuntu specifically. G-Overlay's latest version doesn't even work unless you have Mango HUD like installed properly beforehand. So keep that in mind. It's very, very annoying in Ubuntu. You can fix it. It's just so much better in Nobara. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's great. As you can see here, we have an FPS limiter set to 30, so that's why my game probably didn't look like it was running at 60 FPS. That's my bad. I didn't mean to do that. I totally forgot. What I wanted to do was I can leave it to this 60-30 here. We can click save. And basically what this allows us to do, GOverlay, is basically Riva Tuner Statistics Server for Linux. Okay? So by installing this, what we can do is launch any game, and we can cap it to any frame rate that we want, and we can also force VSync either on or off or to adaptive on all games running through Proton, whether that be Vulkan or any games running on OpenGL. It could be a native Linux port, and we can force VSync on or off. Gives us terrific control over our graphics driver, which is exactly what we want in a situation like this. So perfect example, Dead Space has a 30 FPS VSync cap on the PC version, and without it, the game runs hog wild, super high frame rate, and the game breaks at such a high frame rate. So the recommended steps to take to fix that, basically, are to disable VSync in-game and force VSync on in the graphics driver. That's what GOverlay would be good for in a situation like this. Or say we're in Astroneer, and we realize that we just don't need 60 frames per second no more. First off, that's a pretty nice looking overlay there. I've got the Steam one on also. I didn't really mean to. So it is what it is. I'm just gonna leave it on for now because I don't really care. But as you can see, VSync is disabled here. We can enable it. No screen tearing, super smooth, running at a 60 frame cap, even with VSync off, as you saw there. Now, say you just want to cap your frame rate to 30 in any game, and it's really just as simple as tabbing on over to GOverlay and setting this to 30. You can do that, or since we have it set to 60-30, this is the only option where we can toggle, or 120-60, this is also a toggle option. What we can do is just hit F1, and look at that. We capped our game to 30 FPS in real time. It was flawless. It was instant. This is not something you can do in Windows the same way as far as I know. That was perfect. We don't really have a reason to run. I mean, I can run this game at like 160 FPS at 1080p high, so I didn't have a reason to do this, but the fact that I can do it is what's important, if that makes sense. We hit F1 again, back to 60. I'll go ahead and showcase the 120-60 FPS toggle. And of course, if we want to just put this at unlocked also, and we can set VSync off here. Click save. So now the in-game VSync option in the game is going to cap us to 75 frames per second because it's basically acting as an internal frame rate limiter. GOverlay should overwrite this. Let's put this to unset. And we're going to put these to unset for now. Yeah, there we go. So now we're getting 160 frames per second with no VSync. Super smooth. So you can set any custom frame rate cap, but I really like the toggle option. That's really good. Especially if you're in a game where you're dropping below 120 sometimes. You just want a more stable frame rate. Come back over here. 120 to 60. Click save. Bam. I don't know why we're limited back to 60 or to 75. Hold on one second. This is set to unset. We should be good here. If I hit F1, we're back to... I didn't even hit F1. Hit F1, we're down to 60. Okay. Okay, for some reason, it's putting us back up to 75. I think it's because VSync is enabled. We'll go ahead and disable that. Yeah, okay, because we had it set to unset, so that's my bad. I just had a brain fart moment there, my bad. So as you can see, it's working flawlessly. GOverlay is an excellent application. It comes with Mango HUD pre-installed in Nobara. On other distributions, it's pretty easy to set up, like in Manjaro Linux or Arch-based distributions. I would just install GOverlay from the AUR repository or wherever it is in the software repositories, and it would come with Mango HUD out of the box, or it would let me select components to install with it, such as Mango HUD, Replay Sorcery, which is an open source instant replay alternative, by the way. And yeah, that's pretty good. I don't use that because I've had issues with Replay Sorcery in the past, but if you can get that working, it is super functional open source instant replay technology, and it works just like you would want it to work. So I'm very happy with it. I just haven't personally had a need for it yet, but it is definitely something worth looking into. Go ahead and hit F1. Bam, 60 FPS. So being able to cap our frame rate in real time like this is super convenient and an excellent feature. And we're going to keep getting awesome features like this thanks to the Steam Deck, I think. This application has existed for a while, but this is going to become normalized, guys. Gaming in Linux is hitting different these days, okay? The fact that we can do this at all and that we're playing this game at 120 frames per second. The fact that we can play these games at all is a miracle. But the fact that not only can we play most of the games we want to play, and some really excellent multiplayer games, we can also have instant replay features in Linux, screen capture the past 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, and we have frame rate limiters and overlays to monitor our performance and utilization of our components. We're living in heaven right now when it comes to Linux gaming. It's unbelievable, and it's just terrific. I think now is the best possible time to get into Linux gaming. Sure, you're not going to be able to play Warzone or Hunt Showdown, a lot of those games. Hunt Showdown could work, by the way, in Linux. There were reports years ago that it would start into the menu, then it would crash because of the easy anti-cheat. So if Crytek wanted to enable easy anti-cheat support in Linux, I believe Hunt Showdown would work flawlessly. Apex Legends does, Elden Ring does, they both use easy anti-cheat. Definitely possible. So come on, Crytek, maybe one day, please just enable it. I would love to play Hunt even more no life it than I already do, and I would love to do it in an operating system that doesn't spy on me. So, please, just think about it. But yeah, Warzone is honestly the main reason, other than Hunt, that I have Windows 10 installed on a separate drive. For me personally, I have no reason to be on Windows. Linux does everything that I need it to do. Of course, in this video, we're only covering gaming, and I'm just showcasing some of the launchers, emulation, and this very nice utility, that being Mango HUD through G-Overlay. But we can do other things too. I edit all my videos in Linux. I record them with OBS in Linux. I do pretty much everything in Linux, and it's a terrific experience overall. It's not for everybody. Some people aren't going to be able to use Kdenlive. They have to have Premiere. Some people can't use GIMP because they want Photoshop. I totally get it. You can install older versions of Premiere and Photoshop in Linux through Wine. It's possible. So just keep that in mind. Maybe you can't have the brand new subscription-based one, but you can in fact install older versions before it became basically a paid subscription fee. You could install, I think, Premiere or Photoshop 2019. I remember being able to successfully install that a couple years back, and it's still totally functional. But I personally would recommend using Kdenlive and all those other open source utilities because they're just going to get better the more people that use them. So no reason not to. I think they're terrific. Kdenlive is actually my preferred video editor, even in Windows. It just works flawlessly. But of course you can get DaVinci Resolve working, which is another great video editor. It is functional in Linux if you do some trickery. It's not as simple to install, but the point being, guys, you can do it, okay? And as I've showcased today, here and now, if you've made it this far, you can do it easily, for the most part. You can install any major Linux distribution and have a relatively easy time getting up and running in the games that you love the most, minus certain games, typically multiplayer, that rely on some type of anti-cheat service. A lot of easy anti-cheat games do work, but not all of them. And if it uses root level anti-cheat, such as Valorant or Call of Duty Modern Warfare, then good luck. I'm sorry, it's just not happening. At least not now. Maybe someday in the future. I really hope so, just not now. So, I guess my closing thoughts would be, give it a shot. I recommend, above all other Linux distributions, using Nobara 36. I think Nobara 36 is a terrific Linux distribution. It works so well out of the box. It came with G-Overlay, the frame rate capping utility, the Mango HUD pre-installed for the visual metrics, being able to monitor the utilization of your components, and it came with Steam installed out of the box. And it makes it super simple to get your graphics hardware working. Super simple to update, has tons of packages that you need in the software repositories, the installation, the graphical user interface installer for your applications. It's just terrific. And it's free, okay? And it doesn't spy on you. It even comes with ProtonUp Qt pre-installed. I did not have to install that through the package manager, guys. It was there out of the box. So here's basically what happened. I downloaded Nobara. I put it on my Ventoid drive, which is a bootable USB software, by the way. Put it on my Ventoid drive. Booted in, I installed it. I did everything that the installer wanted. I reserved my 1TB SSD disk space. Didn't create a root user. I just gave my regular user root permissions. It does that automatically. Created a password. Bam, installed, logged in. First thing I did was opened up Firefox while it installed the codecs because it does that automatically. I signed into my stuff. I got all of my Steam accounts ready to be signed into. I opened up Steam, signed into all of them. And the first thing I did was open Proton Up Qt. I installed Proton Glorious Eggroll, restarted Steam while I updated my system, and as soon as it finished, it asked me to restart. I restarted, and I kid you not, at that point, I was ready to go. All I had to do was choose which Proton version I wanted when I went to install a game. You can enable that universally, and I was able to install any game that I wanted with ease. Grapefruit, or Grape Juice, the Roblox launcher in Linux, one-click installation from the software manager. Heroic Game Launcher, one click. Lutris, pre-installed. Dolphin, Yuzu, RBCS3, all those emulators, pre-installed. Now, OBS I did manually install from the website, but it's got excellent instructions for Linux on the website, and you can install it through the package manager, I believe. I usually just do it on the website because that's the way I'm comfortable the most, doing it through the terminal. Kdenlive, super easy to install. Look at this. If we open this welcome screen here, I didn't show you everything. We not only have our first steps to update the system, install media codecs, and proprietary NVIDIA software, it gives you a shortcut to the Software Center, web apps, and the recommended additions tab. This is one easy way to install OBS. You can install Discord easily through here. Why not? I was going to do it at some point. I try to keep the SPI software off as much as possible. It's super easy. Blender, Kdenlive, a must-have video editor in my opinion. Works beautifully. I personally installed Kdenlive through the terminal and OBS. Because this tends to be slower. This does work, but it is slower. But it's all here in a nice, confined, easy to digest package. And that's exactly what you want. Also, if you have AMD, look at this. It's super easy to install more proprietary aspects of the AMD driver. Don't have to. I haven't. But if there's something that you benefit from that, the graphics stack, the official AMD graphics stack, it's here for you. Xbox One pad not working? Launch the install the Xbox One drivers app right here. Bam. Your Xbox One controller works. Glorious Eggroll, like I said, Proton Up Qt pre-installed. Look and feel, you can change a login manager, new themes, icons, layouts. Okay, you know what? This is becoming a review for Nobar. I'm not trying to do that as much. Closing thoughts. It's easier than ever to get into gaming in Linux. Nobar 36 especially makes it super easy. I recommend you guys give it a try. You install it, you click a couple buttons, and then you start gaming, and it's just bliss, and it works amazingly. So that has been my take on the state of gaming in Linux right now. I'm sure you can find other videos. I've seen them where people are really giving Nobar a lot of cred, and it deserves it, man. Nobar 36 is incredible. It is probably the best Linux distribution I've ever used, the most functional, the most responsive, just in terms of trying to get things done. You don't really have to wait for the operating system. I say that as this installation of Discord takes a minute. But it's super fast, and it does good. And you can change and customize everything about it, and it just works. Look at this, even troubleshooting guides right here. This makes it super easy for you to figure out what's wrong. Nobara has a very big community growing from it, by the way, because it's so good. So, yeah, I just recommend trying it out. Gaming in Linux is better than ever. It will get better. But right now, I would have to say I'm very happy with it. We've seen the game launchers, the emulation, Roblox, and we've seen how to cap our frame rate and set up our overlays for hardware utilization. It's pretty epic. And if you guys like this video, be sure to turn on notifications so you don't miss out on my future uploads right after you hit that subscribe button. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Click that like button or the dislike button depending on how you felt about this video, whether it lifted you up or brought you down. But more importantly, give Linux a try. If you found this video informative and it inspired you to finally take that plunge, remember, setting up dual booting is not the most complicated thing in the world. I would look up a tutorial because Nobar doesn't make it as simple as some distributions. But if you have just an extra drive laying around, even if it's a mechanical drive, you can't hurt yourself to just throw it on there and give it a whirl. Because who knows, you may find out, like I have, that it's one of the best pieces of software you could ever run on your computer. So that being said, it's been your friend, No Viewers. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon with some more Linux gaming content.